Every time you call the select method in Supabase, something brilliant happens in the background. One piece of software reads your request, works out who you are, switches your database into the right identity, turns the whole thing into SQL and hands back JSON. That software is PostgREST, and once you see how it works, it's hard not to admire it. There is real beauty in the design. PostgREST verifies your JSON web token and switches your database session into the correct role. Then it gets out of the way and lets Postgres do what Postgres is great at. Your row-level security policies decide which rows each user is allowed to see. If any of those policies are slightly wrong though, you can expose data you meant to protect. By the end of this video, you will know exactly what happens between a client call and the JSON response. The schema cache, the role switch, the SQL translation and serialization trick, all the brilliant engineering behind PostgREST. When you create a Supabase project, you get a Postgres database and right away a REST API at a URL that belongs to your project. Let's take a look how little you actually have to do. You create a table called to-do, you write 0 server code, and the endpoint is already live. You can send GET requests to read rows, POST to insert, patch to update, and delete to remove them. All the standard REST requests working from the second table exists. Supabase calls this the Data API. It works because of one design decision I keep coming back to. The schema is the specification. A dedicated server reads your PostgreSQL schema when it starts, holds it in memory, and turns every incoming HTTP request into SQL using that snapshot. Every table in an exposed schema becomes an endpoint. Every change to your schema changes what the API can do. So you don't need to write any code or redeploy your application. That is the beauty of the PostgREST server. PostgREST has been open source since 2014, written in Haskell, a compiled, strongly typed language. Every Supabase project runs its own dedicated instance. Its own description is refreshingly honest. It serves a fully RESTful API from any existing PostgreSQL database, usually faster than the one you would write yourself. What makes that possible is the snapshot. At startup, Postgres reads your entire schema, every table, every column type, foreign key, relationships, views, and functions. It keeps that whole picture in the memory, and each incoming request gets translated into SQL against it. When your schema changes, a database notification tells Postgres to reload the picture, and only tables in exposed schemas ever become endpoints, so nothing slips out by accident. Let's look into a single request from arrival to response. This is where the design really shows off. The first thing Postgres does is confirm the route exists, that the schema actually contains the table or view you asked for. To answer that without hitting the database on every single call, it keeps an in-memory schema cache built from PostgreSQL's own system metadata. Tables, columns, types, relationships loaded once and consulted on every request. When you change your schema, Supabase refreshes that cache for you. It sets up event trigger that fires a notification to Postgres the moment a schema is changed, and the cache rebuilds itself. There is no restart or manual step. Your new table is part of the API within moments. I love how this just silently works on the backend. And then comes the question of who's asking. Every request resolves to a single Postgres role. For a signed-in user, the request carries an access token, a JSON web token issued by Supabase auth, and Postgres verifies its signature and reads the role claim, normally authenticated. A request made with the project's secret key resolves to a service role, which bypasses row-level security completely and should never run in a browser. With no user logged in, the request falls back to unknown role, the default identity for unauthenticated access. The new publishable and secret keys aren't JSON web tokens themselves. They are opaque keys that Supabase checks before the request reaches Postgres. Either way, the result is the same. Every request arrives with exactly one Postgres role attached. Now for the mechanism behind that switch. Postgres never connects to your database as a power user. It logs in as a special, deliberately weak role called the authenticator. On its own, the authenticator can barely touch anything. Its entire job is to check who the caller is and then change into the role the request resolved to a moment ago. For public traffic, that means the unknown role. For signed-in user, that would be authenticated role. It has almost no power of its own beyond the power to become someone else. Also, Postgres keeps a pool pool of database connections already open and logged in as the authenticator, warm and waiting. When a request comes in, it borrows one of them and changes its identity into the role that request resolved to, instead of opening a brand new connection for every caller. In PostgREST, it's called user impersonation. That connection becomes the unknown or authenticated role for the length of the query, then resets back to authenticator and returns to the pool for the next caller. So while that query runs, Postgres treats the session as that role and applies every rule it has for them. Row-level security policies, column grants, function permissions, all of it already defined inside the database, get enforced from there. Postgres sets the identity and PostgreSQL enforces the rules. In this case, the access rules, meaning who can read and change what, live in the database layer, and the database applies them. With the role set, Postgres translates your HTTP request into SQL. Your column selection becomes a select, your ordering becomes an order by, filters become where conditions. The query runs inside the transaction. Read requests get marked read-only for an extra safeguard, and writes run in read-write mode. And finally, the trick I promised you, on the way out, Postgres calls PostgreSQL's own JSON function inside the query itself. The database assembles the JSON string directly and hands it straight back, and Postgres passes it to the client with no separate serialization step in the application layer. Here we have a new Supabase project open. From the SQL editor, I'm creating a leaderboard table with two columns, a player name and a score. Then I'll insert 4 players with different scores. Now I'll call the API directly, a GET request from the terminal asking for all the rows ordered by score from the highest to lowest. And here they are, JSON ordered exactly right, and I haven't written a single line of API code anywhere. But notice what just happened. This table lives in the public schema and we haven't enabled row-level security. The unknown role already has access to the public schema by default, so with nothing protecting the rows, the table is wide open. Anyone holding the unknown key can read every record. So let me close it. I'll turn on the row-level security for the table and run the same request. Now result is an empty array with RLS on and no policies in place, and no rows are visible to anyone. Now I'll add one policy. The leaderboard is public, so the unknown role is allowed to read every row. Let's send the same request, and now the data comes back. RLS in this case is the gatekeeper, and you describe exactly what each role can reach in plain SQL. The security model has 2 layers. Grants decide whether a role can reach a table through the API at all. If the unknown role has no read grant on your orders table, PostgreSQL refuses the query with the permission denied error, and Postgres returns a 403 to the client. On the other hand, row-level security policies decide which rows a role can see or change inside the table it's already allowed to reach. Both of these layers live in your database. Postgres enforces them by switching the role and letting PostgreSQL apply its own rules. The same rules hold whether the request comes from your web frontend or mobile app or raw API call. One source of truth everywhere. And there is a step you can take before either layer even applies. Shrink the surface itself. By default, the Data API exposes your public schema, but you can point it at a separate lockdown schema instead. So only the tables you choose are reachable. If a project never needs the Data API at all, you can switch it off completely. Every Supabase project runs PostgREST behind an API gateway. The gateway directs the traffic, so REST calls go to PostgREST, auth request to Supabase auth, and so on for other services. And when you call select from a Supabase client library, that library is building an HTTP GET request and sending it for you. The library is the friendly wrapper and PostgREST is the engine underneath. That's the core of how it works, and the more you look at it, the better it gets. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.